It's Mailbag Wednesday here on CHGO Blackhawks. Questions about the Blackhawks' future again. We're going to talk about Connor Bedard again, and a whole lot of Hawk stuff coming up next on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. It's Mailbag Wednesday. I'm Jay Zawaski with Mario Tirabassi. Katie's here running the show today for our pal Sarah, who is still under the weather. Get above the weather, Sarah. We miss you. But we're in the very capable hands of Katie today, so we're excited about that. Before we get started with your mailbag questions, do us a favor, hit that like button for us. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. And if you're checking us out on your favorite podcast app, make sure you're following or subscribed there. We've got a lot to get to. Lots of good questions. Thank you to our diehards.
Tons of
for getting those questions in on our diehards only Discord. Speaking of diehards, through Friday, $36 for the whole year. If you want to become a diehard, yes, you get the free shirt as soon as you sign up. And, of course, you get priority on mailbag Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever mailbag day it might be. You go first. So let's start with one of our diehards, Katie. Who do we got today?
You want to start with Ann's man here?
Let's do that. That sounds good.
There it is.
There it is. Secret Ann's man. Not a secret anymore. Mailbag question. I know that the Blackhawks have a deep prospect pool, but how many of the current forward prospects project as top 2 line forwards? Thanks. Good question.
Yeah, I think when you look at the forwards group, a guy making a ton of noise right now is Nick Lardis, 70 goals in the OHL, second in the league in scoring, 113 points. He's having a really impressive season. I think there's, if that scoring ability translates to the NHL, if being able to find those open spaces in the NHL and getting off the shot that he has, if that can translate to the pro game, like I think you probably are looking at a guy who could be a second line scoring option, a guy who could be someone who's not afraid to shoot, someone who could be a finisher to a distributor on that line and be on the wing and be a goal scorer. Could be a guy like Alex DeBrincat, a guy like Patrick Sharp, someone who wasn't afraid to shoot and tried to score 20, 30, maybe even 40 goals in the league. Like that would be wonderful. I think he's got that ceiling potential there. Another guy is Sasha Boisvert. I think he's got a shot at being, a ceiling of like a really good second line center who's physical, can play a full, 200-foot game. And him too, like his playmaking ability, his shot is very high quality. There's a reason he was a 18th overall pick. He's him and Bedard. They could be a really nice 1-2 punch down the middle. At worst, if he's a really good third line center, then that's good too. I think those guys can really push for that second line spots. I think, Frank Nazar, we still have to see exactly what he is. He's a first liner on this team, but maybe he's a second line guy when he's fully realized and this rest of this team is fully realized. But I think as far as like looking at guys who could be in that top 6, who I have the most confidence in, Boisvert and Lardis, out of the prospect pool, I have the most confidence in being in that spot.
I think, and you mentioned Nazar, and for me, that's the guy I'm sort of counting on because he is so short into his NHL career and already has been so impressive in so many ways and he's only going to get better. So I feel pretty comfortable saying he's a top 6 when he is maxed out. Aside from the prospects you mentioned, don't forget, they're going to be drafting pretty high here for the next year or two as well. They're going to get a top 3 pick this year. They'll probably get a top 5 pick next year. Maybe not quite that high, but
maybe
somewhere in that area. And if they don't get number one overall this year, it's going to be a forward.
Right, yeah. If so, unless San Jose goes off the board and doesn't take Matthew Schaefer, it's very likely, if they're picking, at worst, they're going to be picking fourth.
Yeah.
And 3 of the top 4 guys in this class right now are forwards. So you're probably getting somebody who's going to be a top 6, maybe even first line potential with that pick.
And I think it's also important to remember that even like the best teams in hockey have probably 1 or 2 elite players per line. And even when you looked at the Dynasty Hawks, it was Taves and it was Kane were those elites, and then you had Hossa. So there's like 3 Hall of Fame players, and then it was always sort of filled out with like your Patrick Sharps. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he wasn't that level of player.
Yeah,
Chris Versteeg was able to fill in there sometimes. Sometimes it was Troy Brouwer. Sometimes it was Brian Bickle. So you find those guys that complement the star players you have. So you don't need necessarily 6, by definition, top 6 forwards that are all capable of scoring 30. But if you have 3 of those guys, 4 of those guys, and you're pretty confident saying that about Bedard, you're pretty confident saying it about Nazar, whoever the draft pick is this year, if it's a forward, if it's Misa, or I said Martisa. I combined them. Martone or Misa.
Or James Higgins.
Or Higgins, right. They're projected to be good scorers in the NHL too. So then you add a free agent, and now you're cooking, right? So it's not quite as far away as it might seem. And Lardis to me is so fascinating because 70 goals is nothing to sneeze at. But I think coming into this year, we weren't really sure what to make of him as a prospect. And now all of a sudden, it's like, damn. This is a guy we have to really think about here.
Yeah, really, really jumped off the page there. I think a big season from him was, that was in the cards. But something like this, I think, is even above and beyond that. I mean, this scoring 70 in the OHL has only been done. He's the 8th guy to do it. Like the last one to do it was John Tavares 20 years ago, basically, and the next guy to do it before that was 20 years before that too. I think it was Lindros might have been the next guy after that. So it's like, yeah, he panned out pretty good. So it's been very very surprising to see that level from Lardis, but I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it all translates to the professional game. And if he's not a 40 goal scorer, that's okay. Like I think there's enough in the forwards prospect pool that you can say like that middle 6 second line, like there's going to be enough guys to pan out, I would imagine, based off of just, the odds that there's going to be some really nice players in there. And you don't fill out your entire team with draft picks. So there could be some of those guys that start going in good directions, but, maybe you accelerate the lineup construction a little bit more with trading somebody like that for a more established NHL guy that you say, oh, yes, definitely a second line guy.
All right, we're going to get to G-Bubs next, but before we do us a favor, hit that like button as people have sort of populated the show since we started. Please get some more likes on there. We only have 31 at this point. That's unacceptable. On 312 Day, what are we doing? Show some pride.
We need at least 312
That's
likes.
Right. Get those likes in there. Now we move on to our next question from another diehard G-Bubs.
G-Bubs.
Not to be confused with Hooters' lesser competitor.
Yes.
G-Bub says, what are your thoughts on not signing a big free agent if Marner and Bennett don't get to July 1st or want to sign? 2026 has some big names as well, McDavid. Is it worth investing 5 to 7 years and getting a Besser Ehlers level free agent when we hopefully have those players in the pipeline, Kancherov, Lardis, etc.? Does our hostess signing have to be now? I like this question a lot, and I think I'm glad it's asked today, and I think maybe we should just isolate this and save it and just post it every day this summer if the Hawks don't get Mitch Marner, because it doesn't have to be this year. Ideally, yes, you want to get Mitch Marner and have him here for the next 7, 8 years, right? And that would be great, and it solves a problem. But beyond him this summer, there's not really anyone. But when you look at 2026, McDavid's not going to happen. Panarin, Eichel, Kaprizov, Connor, Lee.
Which Connor?
Kyle Connor. Yeah, like there is a much better draft. There's a much better class of free agents that year. Even you get to your lower tiers like Alex Tuck,
Yeah,
it's a lower tier, but it's a free agent. Mason Marchment will be a free agent at that time.
Yeah, I think there's, and I mean, we did this time last summer where we were like, oh my gosh, Draisaitl and Rantanen and Marner are all going to be free agents.
They won't all
and
reach.
We might get to July 1st and none of those guys are on the board. I think, a lot of times, those upcoming free agent lists get dwindled down to, a very, very small list of like quote unquote elite guys. But I think it's going to be interesting. If Marner is not even on the market this summer, I'll be fascinated to see how the Blackhawks go about the offseason, because I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis put on the young guys and giving them opportunities. And maybe it's not necessarily landing a big unrestricted free agent, but maybe there's some sort of splash made where they use their draft picks or, make some sort of trade where it's a guy who's up for RFA as a restricted free agent is brought in, someone who's younger, someone who maybe fits the timeline a little bit better than someone who's 28, 29, 30, rather being 23 or 24 and is established as an NHL guy or, could have a more elevated role in Chicago. Like, I think there's definitely some options there. But if you get to 2026, or if you get through this summer, you don't land somebody big, I don't think it's a failure, because as they're kind of laying the groundwork at the end of the season, a lot of the young guys, a lot of the guys we're seeing in the roster right now are going to be penciled in at the beginning of next season for NHL spots.
Yeah.
You're kind of going to see what you got moving forward with this, first wave of the rebuild.
And remember that Hossa was the final piece of the puzzle. He was last, like Brian Campbell was one brought in before that. So maybe that's your Brock Besser, Nikolai Ehlers kind of player. And someone said, why do people underrate Ehlers? Because he's in Winnipeg. They're just so out of sight, out of mind for so many hockey fans.
I think a lot of people.
They're a great team, but you never see them on national TV. They don't get a lot of conversation about them for whatever reason.
Outside of Canada.
Right, but he's a great player who would certainly fill a need for the Hawks this summer if they choose to go that route. So no one should be disappointed in that.
I would not mind like if the big thing is Nikolai Ehlers, I'm okay with that. Just making sure you're not, doing the Stan Bowman where it's just like a massive deal for too much money.
Yeah.
Like if you bring in Ehlers in a similar fashion that you did like Bertuzzi and Tavo, where it's like, 3-4 years at a reasonable cap hit, I think that's a really good move. But again, he would need to be interested in coming to Chicago to do that. But if you do that, I'm completely fine with that, because that's adding a complementary piece that can move the needle forward a little bit, but it's still going to bring a lot of focus to the young guys coming along with him.
So cap wages, which is what I use is a cap. Was it cap friendly? Is that the old one?
It was cap friendly.
Cap friendly replacement. They have a next contract analyzer on cap wages, and for Ehlers, they're saying the next deal would be 6 years at 7.5.
Interesting.
It's about right. I'm
totally
that
down
makes
with sense for him for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have that for guys who are impending free agents the next year. So,
what is Marner's?
Marner is, I can get to it.
$20 million.
No, Marner is 8 by 12.06.
So that's if he re-signs in Toronto.
It doesn't specify, but it's just.
But yeah, 8 years would be that.
Yeah.
Or
if Toronto trades his rights, it would be 8 years.
I can't imagine we're going to go through all this and he signs for that.
Well, Rantanen signed for 12, so that's kind of your comp. I know the tax thing is all there, but it's percentage of the cap. It's that sort of stuff that a lot of the teams look at as well. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on, that's for sure. It's going to be one crazy summer. All right, we got to hit the break zone. Back with more. Hit that like button for us on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
Trying to get a bright and clear picture of the future here for the Blackhawks, and where you can get a clear picture of that what is ahead of you is with our friends at Right On Optics with their world-class binoculars. No matter what outdoor activities you prefer, It's always important to have the best view, and Right On Optics provides a full range of optic products to help you see clear, see far, and see the best. Better views for your sporting events for your kids. If you've been asked to watch from the parking lot, Right On Binoculars can help you out there. If you've been getting the best deals at game time, but you happen to be in the nosebleeds, those Right On Binoculars will allow you to feel like you're right there at the 50-yard line. And if you've taken up bird watching, well, you're going to need a nice pair of binoculars for that. Our friends at Right On offers a high performance at a lower price, the perfect balance of performance and value that won't break the bank. And speaking of breaking things, your Right On Optics binoculars have an unlimited lifetime warranty that not only covers defects, but also accidental damage from drops. Get a better look at everything with our friends at Right On. Check them out at rightonoptics.com/CHGO. That's Right On Optics, RITON optics.com/CHGO.
And light beer just got better, introducing Sam Adams American Light. It's right there. Frosting on the set. It's clean. It's crisp. It's super easy to drink. There's no gimmicks, no fluff. It's just great tasting beer. And on a day like today, where we're approaching, 55 degrees, crack one of these open on your porch. Go outside for the first time in a while. We got a nice week ahead, too. Friday. It's going to be in the 70s. Oh, man. Pick yourself up some Sam Adams American Light. It's not your average light beer. It's brewed with 100% American-sourced ingredients from local independent farmers. That's light beer that's made right. Light beer should never feel like a compromise. It's an American classic, so smooth you'll want to crack open another one again and again. It's always Sam season. Light beer just got better. Grab some Sam Adams American Light, available now at select Chicago retailers. Must be 21. Please drink responsibly. All right, next. Oh, we got to do, my bad. We got to do What's Brewing. Yes. Presented by Sam Adams American Light. And What's Brewing is Connor Bedard's Instagram.
Oh boy.
That lit some fires today. Sure
did. Connor put up a non-sponsored post, which is unique for Bedard's Instagram. But a couple of pictures of him celebrating. That was the OT winner at home wearing the Winter Classic jersey. There was another picture of him in the Winter Classic jersey in the actual Winter Classic. And then a third picture was him high-fiving a little kid at a community event. And I think the biggest thing is the caption of the photo is just the home emoji on your keyboards there on your phone. Not the one with the tree and the bushes, but just the home itself. I mean,
important distinction.
Yeah, I think there's. It might seem small, might seem dumb, might just be some little Instagram post, but I think with what has gone on with the Blackhawks and the Seth Jones trade, what has gone on with the Blackhawks since they've gotten Connor Bedard and the noise around him, this is not nothing. This is something that is from the younger generation where Instagram posts are important. Like, this is something of him kind of putting that flag in the ground of like, no, I'm here. I'm in Chicago. I'm a Blackhawk. Like, I am seeing this through. We are going to build something here. And that's been the messaging, heavily throughout this rebuild process, but especially this past week. We've heard it from Maroon. We've heard it from Nick Foligno. We heard it from Alex Vlasic on yesterday's show. Go and check that out. You hear it from the young guys that are part of the building something here. Like, they are really going in on that, making it special here. So I think it's a big thing, especially with the noise that's been surrounding him.
Yeah, and you've got Greg Wyshynski on with Jeff Merrick last week. And I like Greg Wyshynski, but I think a lot of times he's doing a lot of the things he says are with a smirk and with a smile, and he knows that they're inflammatory, and he knows they're a little bit off base, and he was speculating that Connor Bedard wants out of Chicago, as a lot of people have done. And I'll say this, like, I did not make a big deal out of this post. I did not make much of it because maybe it's because I'm older, but I also think that the entire thing about Connor Bedard wanting to leave is so absurd. You saw him stick with Regina through many opportunities to move to a better team to play for the Memorial Cup, and he said, no, this is the team that drafted me. I'm staying here. he has known he's going to be the number one pick in the NHL since he's 14?
Basically.
At least. Most number one overall picks go to crap-ass teams. That's why they have the number one overall pick. I think the Hawks this year went and got Tyler Bertuzzi. They went and got Teuvo Teravainen. Maybe Pat Maroon doesn't help him directly, but they tried to make this team better. It didn't work. When Connor Bedard was struggling early this year, they fired the coach because they thought that he was part of the reason that he was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And Connor Bedard's numbers went up with a more offensive system under Anders Sorensen. They're going to hire another coach in hopes of improving the team around Connor Bedard. They're also going to approach and try to improve the team roster-wise. He already made a strong run at Jake Gensel, who decided to go to Tampa. Fine. Kyle Davidson has said repeatedly, if a move makes sense for them, they're going to be aggressive in pursuing it. Mm-hmm. He has been aggressive in pursuing other moves. This whole idea that the Hawks are this dumpster fire because the 2024-25 NHL roster has probably 5 or 6 less wins than people expected is absurd. It is absurd. They were going to be a bad team regardless. It was just a matter of how bad were they. And yes, they were significantly worse than anyone expected, so the head coach was fired. But as you look, and this is where I would sort of challenge Greg Wyshynski, he's got a huge platform. So does Jeff Marek. To ignore what is happening at the lower levels of this team, it's negligent. You can't say this organization's a dumpster fire because the NHL team 2 years into a rebuild isn't good. 3 years into a rebuild isn't good. That's how it goes. But everything that's happening under the surface is super positive. You just had this year's number 2 overall draft pick come and make his NHL debut and was one of the better players on the ice against the Colorado Avalanche. Mm-hmm. Nick Lardis, as we've discussed ad nauseum, just picked up his 70th goal. Mm-hmm. Could hit 80 this year. You've got Boisvert thriving. You've got how many Hobey Baker nominees? 5 in the Hawks system are Hobey Baker nominees in the college game. You've got Kevin Korchinski, who already has a full NHL season under his belt, who is developing and learning in Rockford. There's nothing to look at here and say this is a dumpster fire in terms of the track of the rebuild. Was this NHL season a disappointment? 100%. But to say it's a dumpster fire in Chicago is a very, very lazy narrative. That's you're going like, what are the standings? Oh, yeah, that's bad. Dumpster fire.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation from I think a lot of outside perspectives was, oh, you have Bedard. Okay, all chips to the middle. You trade every asset you have to build your NHL roster to be a competitor right now, sign every free agent, give them all the money, all the term, and it's all about Bedard right now and screw the future. And that's completely the opposite of how you build something for long-term success. Like, yeah, you do that, you sell the farm to make sure that Bedard has some more NHL talent around him. How long does that last?
That is negligence.
Right.
That is mismanagement.
That's
you're putting yourself in a bad spot.
That's flash in a pan, and if it doesn't work, you rebuild with Connor Bedard 5 years into his career.
If Jake Gensel had chosen to sign in Chicago, would it still be they're being negligent by Connor? If the offseason was Gensel, Bertuzzi, Teravainen, Martinez, Maroon, and Brody, is that letting Connor Bedard down? I don't think so. No. Like, they're doing what they can do. They can't force guys to come and play here, but they've got money. They've got a great young system. They've got a great city to sell. This whole thing is way overblown. And tell me, honestly, which franchise is in a better situation right now, the Blackhawks or the Canucks? That's where apparently Connor Bedard just can't wait to go join Vancouver, who has a broken Elias Pettersson. JT Miller needed out because he couldn't play with him. Quinn Hughes is hurt and looks like his dog died 24/7. You had a GM just publicly say there's no interest in Brock Besser to the media. And it is a complete dumpster fire in Vancouver right now.
Also, a GM that tracks online comments and goes into the replies and shares those with the team owner and the head coach and all this stuff. Like, that doesn't seem great. I don't know. That seems like someone who's got their priorities in a different spot.
If I'm a young player and if I really had to say, like, would I rather be in Vancouver or Chicago? Right now, the only argument, and it's a good one that Vancouver has, is Quinn Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge piece
for now.
But do you trust their staff to dig out and fix what's broken there? And it's really starting to look like they traded because JT Miller is having a good old time in New York.
Yeah. I don't know. It really feels like the Canucks are, due for a blow up at some point.
All right, let's get one more in here before the break. Let's go to Flip, who had a good question. This kind of dovetails on what we were talking about earlier. Flip says, hey, guys,
Flip.
Looking at the free agent class, is there anyone aside from Marner that moves the needle? We talked about that a little bit. If Marner does sign in Toronto for anywhere between 12 and 14, could you see Kyle offer-sheeting Matthew Nyes? We know this front office has targeted him before, and at 23 would be a perfect fit. That's what you're talking about with the RFAs.
That's an aggressive move because it seems like Toronto is really dead set on keeping Matthew Nyes.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're the Blackhawks, you want to put some pressure on them, you could definitely do that, because if you offer sheet Matthew Nyes to a high number, that forces Toronto's hand. That forces them to either match, and then you have less money to go around for Mitch Marner, or you are all in on getting a deal with Marner done, but it might be taking money away from being able to keep Matthew Nyes around. I think that's a ballsy strategy, and Kyle Davidson has said that he's going to be aggressive. He's tried to be aggressive in the past, so I wouldn't put that past the realm of possibility. I think what we saw with St. Louis and Edmonton last offseason with the offer sheets and how that went down and how it has worked out for St. Louis. They got great returns on Broberg and Holloway.
Yeah.
I think you're going to start seeing that route of offer sheeting players and going into the restricted free agent pool a little bit more aggressively. I think you're going to see more of that from GMs, as it's kind of been like a taboo thing to do in past years. I think it's going to get a little bit more commonplace.
Well, and even if it's not an offer sheet, you can, if teams feel like they're not going to be able to afford these guys, like you look at Florida with Mackie Samoskevich, you just traded for Seth Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to try to bring Aaron Ekblad back. I don't know how they're going to feel. Like they're going to. That's a team that's going to have to start sacrificing some young talent because they are all in.
Seems like the Ekblad Jones situation it seems like Jones is more than an insurance policy if they don't bring back Aaron Ekblad. I don't know. To me, it feels like he's going to be a free agent.
It does, yeah, it does here too. And I did see it was either Laz or Powers mentioned that Ekblad could be a target for the Hawks this summer, which would be interesting. They've got a lot of defensemen, but they don't have any proven top 4 defensemen, so we'll see. All right, we got one of those quick ones we can squeeze in real fast here, Katie. All right, Scott says, can you explain the starter crease and morning skate on game day?
Yeah. So it's when you walk into the United Center for morning skate, media sits on what would be I want to say there's the lake, go in north side of the United Center. I think it's section 101. So as you're facing south, it is the net that would be on your left as you're facing it's behind the benches.
The east goal.
Behind the benches. So yeah, it would be the east goal. That is where the presumed starter for that night's game warms up during morning skate. And then the other goalie gets on the other side, and then the other goalie will face more shots during practice, more live shots during practice, to keep the starter goalie fresh. Also, starter goalie usually leaves the ice first. So
there you go. Asked and answered. All right, more to come. Do us a favor. Hit that like button. 91 likes. We got to get over 100. Let's go. Hit that like button for us.
312.
Yeah, we got a ton more questions to go. So stick around. We'll be back with more quickly on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
If you are in the market for a new vehicle, check out our friends at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram and get more power to you during the Dodge Performance Days at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Now is your chance to score a great deal on your next vehicle. Head to Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram on Route 12 today to choose from their huge inventory of new Chryslers, Dodges, Jeeps, and Rams' vehicles. And right now, lease the new 2024 Dodge Charger Daytona for only $259 a month. Or you can get 0% financing for 72 months. Plus, you can shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. With a friendly team of brand experts, the team at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram is here to help you during each step of your car shopping journey. Plus, they prioritize affordability so you know you won't overpay for the vehicle you need. And with Ray's Price Promise, you can shop confidently with no add-ons and no hidden fees ever. The price you see and hear is the price you pay. So go check out our partner today to shop one of the Chicago area's largest inventories. Find the right vehicle for you because you don't want the wrong vehicle, and drive home happy because you don't want to drive home sad.
No.
The team at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram is the only one we recommend. Don't miss out on Dodge Performance Days going on all month long for a low lease and financing rates on the new 2024 Dodge Charger. For more information, visit Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram today on Route 12 in Fox Lake, or go online at raycdjr.com. They've been serving the community since 1963.
And the second half of the basketball and hockey seasons are here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. That's every Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. I'm going to go off script here.
Oh, boy.
Prize Picks is awesome. Here's how you play. You go to a game. You go to a league. You look at, let's say, Hawks and Sharks, right? Got Connor Bedard. More than, less than, half a point. Boom, more than.
More than.
Macklin Celebrini. More than, less than, half a point.
Less
than. Spencer Knight. More than, less than, half a goal allowed. Less than. You pile those picks up. You get them all right. You win big.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's so much fun. It's daily fantasy like you've never played it before. Download the app today. Use the code CHGO. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app. Use code CHGO to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. We love it. We do it every game. It's amazing. Get yourself Prize Picks. You will enjoy it.
Love Prize Picks. Love it for the darts and the League of Legends.
Yes.
And what is it? Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, also known as CSGO. CSGO, actually.
Not to be confused with us or CHSN.
CHSN, yeah.
And I saw Tom P say, if Comcast doesn't get CHSN by next year, I'm leaving. Tom, you should probably go. Because it looks like Comcast is about to get rid of Marquee.
Sports shouldn't be this hard to watch.
Not interested in regional sports.
Hey, when does CHGO get the broadcast rights? That's what I'm worried about.
Then we can use highlights and stuff on the show.
Then we could, yeah.
All right, let's go to...
You and me could do play-by-play.
Ooh, that would be bad. Let's go to Rooney, who had the next question for us, another one of our diehards. And again, take advantage of our $36 for the year sale at allchgo.com. We'll get to more of it later, Katie. You don't have to scramble for the graphics. Rooney says, with another lottery finish on tap next year, and the Sharks likely to finish with the worst record this year, would it be better if the Hawks didn't win the lottery in 2025? With the rules on number of times you can win a lottery in a 5-year span, jumping up this year would mean no McKenna next year, unless, God forbid, they finish with the worst NHL record. Picking 2 to 4 this year guarantees one of Hagen's, Martone, or Misa. I don't like thinking about 2-3 years down the road and trying to
thinking
get
about the lottery
draft pick.
Yeah.
For me, I almost hope they get the second pick, so San Jose takes Schaefer, and you're just like, okay, good, get the forward, because I just don't want to deal with the consternation if they take another defenseman. That said, if they take Schaefer, it's a great pick, and he's going to be really good for a long time.
Yeah.
And then you've got Schaefer and Levshinov for the next decade plus. Thank you. Sign me up for that.
Alex Vlasic is your number 3 defenseman.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
So
You're doing pretty
there's
good
no
there.
bad pick, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, sure. Would it be great to get Gavin McKenna too? Yes. Let's get all of them.
Sure.
But
get every one of Connor Bedard's family members and friends.
I just
get 'em
don't.
all.
Yeah, I just don't want to think about. I don't know. Yeah, sure.
You know what's funny is
It's a deep draft this year up top.
oh, absolutely.
So fine.
What's funny is this draft has had 2 different consensus number 1 prospects, the 2025 draft class. It started with James Higgins.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into Matthew Schaefer. And it's March 12th, 3/1/2 day.
Mm-hmm.
That means we are 3.5 months to the draft. I don't know if Matthew Schaefer will get to the draft floor as the consensus number 1 guy. I have started to see a number of people put Michael Misa as their number 1 prospect in the draft. So winning the draft lottery this year, it gives you the number 1 pick for sure. That's gives you the front of the line, pick of the class, whoever you want. But I don't think getting the number 1 pick necessarily means you have to take Matthew Schaefer. And I think there's a way that you can get the guy that maybe fits what the prospect pool needs as a higher need. Obviously, you need the best players available, of course. But I don't think if you land number 1 this year that it's just like, oh, crap, now we're going to be the team that passed up Matthew Schaefer. I think there'd be a lot of people that would say it's very logical to take a guy like Michael Misa number 1 overall. The odds right now say that they're not going to get the number 1 pick because it was, what is it, 13.5 for the team that finishes second to last.
Yeah.
But you at least get the top 4. I think that you're going to get a game-changing player in the top 4. And then, who knows what happens next year. I mean, I would love for them to not be in that bottom 5 lottery
That would
spot,
be great.
but who knows? I mean, we didn't think that they'd be in that spot this year. We thought maybe they'd be 6th or 7th or 8th from the bottom, but there they are again, second from the bottom. So it'll be interesting to see if they are in that spot again. Who knows how the lottery balls will bounce in 2026? Maybe they do land Gavin McKenna. Who knows? But I think no matter where you land this year, you have the option of getting whoever you want out of those top 4, and I don't think there's going to be too much mumbling and grumbling whoever you pick.
Well, also if they get number 1 and Schaefer is declared like the definitive number 1, the Hawks could say, look, we like any of those 3 forwards. If someone really wants Matthew Schaefer that badly, come trade us for the top pick.
Yeah.
And, if San Jose, because San Jose is kind of like the opposite of the Hawks where they're very forward heavy and don't have that stud defensive prospect, maybe they really, really, really want Matthew Schaefer and they give you an asset to get up to number 1. Crazier things have happened.
Will Smith.
So, sure. Yeah. Exactly.
I would take that.
There's a lot of possibilities, but look, whoever they get this year, it's going to be a massive piece of the future going forward. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, it'll be good. All right, let's move on to, I think it's Deadhawk next. Deadhawk says, on the podcast yesterday, Vlasic talked about a 5-man group in Colorado. We have seen with Luke and now Anders a lot of line blending. How much do we think a coach that isn't sitting on the hot seat can just set a line and live with it for a few weeks? Seems like Luke and now Anders are trying to find wins where someone with a bit more of a leash can try to build line chemistry.
I think, Anders has a leash.
Yeah, he's not going to get fired.
Because he might not be the head coach, but he's not getting tossed from the organization. Kyle Davidson has said so.
Right.
He's going to stay within the organization. And I think the concept of, playing as a 5-man unit is I think it's less about literally the 5 people on the ice, and it's more of like a team concept of just the understanding of positionally where you're supposed to be, what your responsibilities are, and like who you play with on a line and a defensive pair. That does make an impact, but it's more or less just a a structure and a system mindset of like everyone has to flow in the right spot. Because if one guy's out of position, doesn't matter if it's Connor Bedard or Pat Maroon, something could fall apart.
Yeah, and what Vlasic was referring to yesterday was the fact that, because we asked him kind of, who do you prefer to play against, McDavid or McKinnon? And his point was, I don't like to play against either of them. But with McKinnon, he's busting down a line, and then behind him is Cale Makar or Devin Taves. And like, they're just such a deep team. Whereas, not saying Edmonton's not deep, but I don't think they're not Colorado deep. You've got Bouchard and you've got nice defensemen there, but you don't have anyone like Makar.
Right.
And I think that was kind of more his point was, oh my God, they just like kind of keep coming at you.
Yeah, like waves of an attack. Yeah.
So, no, but I think, look, Joel Quenneville took a lot of crap here for mixing up the lines all the time. He's just the coaches are just trying to get things going and find things that are clicking. So I don't have a problem with line changing occasionally. I do think Sorensen's done it a little too much, but despite the 3-0 loss, the lines that we all kind of panned before the game worked out in Colorado, kept the game close, kept it competitive. The Hawks certainly could have won that game. And I would expect that for tomorrow's game in San Jose, it's not going to be Dickinson, Bedard, and Nazar. I think you're going to see more traditional Blackhawks lines. I think he was really trying to approach that with, we need to have someone that can defend on every line. So
yeah, it was probably more situational.
But yeah, I mean, having a guy you know is going to be your coach for the next 5 or 6 years and you're confident with that, maybe it gives that coach a little more, a little more time in their heads to experiment and commit to some of the more, consistent matchups. But I don't think Kyle Davidson is evaluating Anders Sorensen by whether he's winning games or not. He's looking to see how these young players are coming along. He's looking to see how he strategizes a game.
That's the reason that it was Anders Sorensen taking over for Luke Richardson rather than going out and hiring somebody, another head coach who was available to try and get this team to win. It was, okay, this season is lost at this point. We're not taking the right steps that we need to under Luke Richardson any longer. Let's get the guy who has been in charge of developing guys in Rockford up to Chicago so that he can oversee the NHL development of these young guys. And then as we've seen this season go on, you trickle up the guys from Rockford that, have played under Sorensen and have been developing under him, get them up to Chicago and continue that development path. It's been about more the development of those guys than it has necessarily been about wins and losses. And I think part of the line shuffling is really just, as much as it's annoying that you'd want to see some consistency, especially for Connor Bedard, get some consistency for him. It is trying to figure out in different responsibilities, different roles, what these young guys can handle and where their, consistencies can be at the NHL level and what they need to work on.
All right, next up is our pal Windy City Hockey. He had a question. First fun question.
Oh, I like fun questions.
Who will go down as a bigger Blackhawks legend, Shea Weber or Laurent Brossoit?
I think the Weber number 6 jerseys are already being printed, and I have yet to see a Laurent Brossoit jersey. So
yeah,
I think Weber's going to have it.
I still have a feeling Brossoit might play for the Hawks, not this year, but I don't know if we've seen the last.
He's not going to play. Yeah, he's not going to play this year. Do they buy out both Brossoit and Brody this summer? That seems. I don't know. I don't know if that happens to both of them. I think one of them will. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you buy out Brody just because it's a space situation, especially if they're. It's not the first time I heard Aaron Ekblad's name, and even if it's not him, it does appear they want to sign a veteran defenseman that's not a bum
that you can put in your lineup. Right. Yeah,
and that's not DJ Brody.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But they've got tons of cap space, so if Brossoit is approaching health soon or this summer or whatever it might be, goalies get hurt, goalies go down.
Yeah, but you don't want to muddy up your situation. I think you go into next year, if you have 3 guys that you're like, they could be in the NHL, then you're sending one guy who's not Spencer Knight to Rockford that shouldn't be there, really. it'd be either Brossoit or Soderblom. And I think if you're bringing back Soderblom, which I really believe that they will,
I would think so too.
If you bring him back and he ends up in Rockford, I can't imagine. And he's, never shown any signs of being, any kind of like attitude or personality problems at all. The opposite.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that would sit well with him. And then if you're Drew Comezzo in Rockford and you're like, oh, here's a guy who should be in the NHL taking starts away from me, that's another thing. Like, I
get what you're saying, but I don't care. Like
thanks, Jay.
I'm so, it's that's all accurate, and F that. It's pro sports. There's going to be hurt feelings. Like Peter Mrazek, they said, hey, look, better goalie. Sorry, Peter. Thanks for your service. Like, yes, he did. He kept them in games last year, and he was pretty decent to start this year. And they're like, as soon as something better came along, they said, peace. See ya. That's how they should operate. Like, I don't care about hurting feelings, or if Drew Commesso is upset, then play better. You still have the opportunity to win. You're still in the organization. You're still going to get starts. Earn the job. That's all I'm saying. And I think if Soderblom is here and Brossoit is here, Spencer Knight's got a spot, right? You traded a lot to get him. That's your future in goal. But let Brossoit and Soderblom battle it out in training camp. And if Brossoit's better, cool. Then he's the backup. And you've got two really good goalies with a track record. And if Soderblom has to go to Rockford and find it, and then if Soderblom's great and one of them goes down and Soderblom comes back and is awesome, then you could trade one of them instead of just saying, well, you know what? Brossoit got hurt and he didn't get to play last year. By the way, hurt after they signed him. So we're just going to punt on him and now tie up two buyout spots. I don't think you have to do that right away. You can figure it out. And no, there might be some hurt feelings, but you can't operate that way. You can't worry about how is this guy or that guy going to feel. I don't care. You have to do what's best for the roster, what's best for the organization, what's best for the team. And if Laurent Brossoit is a better goalie than Arvid Soderblom, and we all 100% of us thought so coming into this year, 100% of us
better than last year's,
then he should get the chance to earn that job. The guy got hurt, not his fault. So I think that, and look, they might know, look, this injury he's never going to come back from this. Let's just break for, like, we know he's not going to play. So let's just buy him out and get him out of here. Fine. But if he's healthy, why would you just let a guy like that go when you've got nothing but cap space? And then if Soderblom outplays him, then you waive Brossoit. Maybe someone takes him. Problem solved.
I think it's just easier to not have the problem.
Yeah, but why? What does it accomplish?
It gets roadblocks out of the way.
But the roadblock, you got rid of a roadblock in 3 days in Peter Mrazek.
Yeah.
It was 3 days for an unmovable road. That was not a roadblock. That was a guardrail that had been installed with concrete and iron and blood and sweat and tears. And it was gone in 3 days.
Well, I think you brought in Brossoit to be your backup behind Mrazek, and you had Soderblom pegged in to figure things out in Rockford, and then Brossoit gets hurt. Soderblom comes up into the NHL and then figured it out in the NHL. Now you have Brossoit or Soderblom and Knight going into next season. I think, again, I believe a deal is going to get done with Soderblom, and he's going to be back. And then you have Comezzo in Rockford, and he's your number 3. And then I think Brossoit coming in as on a 2-year deal as like, be the backup, be that bridge. You don't need the bridge anymore. You have Spencer Knight. You have you will have Soderblom again. You'll have Drew Comezzo. I just think you don't need to have Laurent Brossoit around anymore. And yeah, I know they have a ton of cap space, but if he's healthy and you move him for future considerations, or you move him for a bundle of something, a bundle of maybes, that's fine. Or you buy him out, and it's just, who cares? It's not my money. It's a low price tag. I think it's just easier to not have extra guys if it's not necessary.
It is easier, but it's part of the job of the GM is to have the team in the best situation to win. And there's a better than 0 chance that a healthy Laurent Brossoit is a better goaltender than Arvid Soderblom. I mean, we talked about him being the backup from Mrazek, but we all did that wink, wink. He's going to be the starter at some point. We were talking about at best a 50-50 split with Brossoit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not ready to say, well, guy was hurt, buy him out, move on, just because it simplifies things. I don't care about that. Do what's best for the org. Let the three of them battle it out. Spencer Knight can be sent back down. That can happen. He can go to Rockford if he doesn't earn it. I'm confident he's going to earn it based on what we've seen and based on his pedigree. But why not? And if Soderblom's unhappy about it, you're going to get another chance, kid. Like, someone's going to hit a groin injury. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get sick, whatever it might be. And you will get your chance to come and earn that job again. I think it should be a meritocracy. And I just think moving on from Brossoit when it's not causing you any problems aside from the slight inconvenience of a roster spot. And if he comes back and sucks in training camp, then you could talk about it, right? But even then, maybe you waive him. I don't know. And send him down there and he can be if no one claims him, he could be your mentor for Drew Comesso and get him ready for the next level.
Sure. He'll be 32 later this month. And one more year, $3.3 million on the books through next season. He'll have lost an entire year to injury. Never been a full-time starter in the NHL, or hasn't had a workload close to that heavy in 5-6 years, I think it was, coming into this year. So, we'll see. It's low.
Also got a career 9/11 save percentage.
It's low on the list of things that have to happen. But if Brossoit wasn't on this team next year, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it.
I'm not gonna flip out over it either, because I'm assuming that decision is made with some knowledge of his ability to recover from the injury and come back at anything resembling what he used to do. But if that's a possibility, you owe it to yourself to look. You're paying him. He's here. He's under contract. You might as well see if he's a better option than one of your other two goalies. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Windy City had more to his question, by the way.
What was it? There was a second question.
Yeah, there was a second part. He says,
You're
with
right.
the youth movement in full swing, when do we see Kevin Korchinski get his next shot in the NHL and a prospect like Samuel Savoie get his NHL debut?
They have one more call-up that they can use from Rockford before the end of the year. And they have a lot of young defensemen here already, with Levshinov now up. They could swap Levshinov and Korchinski before the end of the year.
That wouldn't shock me.
That wouldn't surprise me. That I think Kevin deserves to have that look. I also wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Savoie is used for that final call-up. I'd be fine with that too. But yeah, I mean, I think the way Korchinski has played this year in Rockford, we saw from the PHPA, the AHL and ECHL Players Association. They put out the season time on ice leaders, and Kevin Korchinski was 5th in the AHL in average time on ice per game. I wish that stat was public for everyone to see.
I'll get around to it.
But he's taken up a big workload in Rockford, and he's been doing a really good job with it. And I would love to see him get another handful of games at the end of the year in the NHL and be up here with the rest of these young guys and do it in the NHL. Be with the rest of that group, the guys you played with in Rockford, like Nazar and Doc, and be with Bedard again, like Del Mastro. I just think that would be a really good, like, pat on the back for him.
Agree.
And he had 5 or 6 games earlier this year.
He
in
looked
the
pretty
NHL,
good too,
and he looked improved. He looked like a better player. So I would love to see Kevin get back up for the last handful of games and see what he can do. But I mean, it's gonna get log jammed with some of these guys that are gonna be ending their years in college and very, very likely signing. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
You didn't mention the AHL leader in ice time, Blackhawks legend Caleb Jones.
Yeah, good for him.
Yep,
almost 25 minutes a night. That's a lot of. That's like his brother.
He's a perfect 4A hockey player.
Yes. He's with the Kings organization, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Ontario Reign. That's a really cool name, by the way.
REI.
REIGN.
GN.
All right, let's go to Ryan C. next. He's had a question for us. He says, "Hey guys, just a fun question from me." We'll be the judge of that, Ryan. What's a moment you experienced in attendance at a Hawks game that you'll never forget? Cup wins don't count. Interesting.
Never been in attendance.
Example,
for
I
those.
saw the December 07 game against the Oilers where LaPointe led the team back out to acknowledge the fans. That felt like a big turning point in a ramp up to the Cup era. I'm going to also not count the fact that I was at the All-Star game in 91 for the anthem because that's cheating.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not technically a Blackhawks game.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll take that out of the equation. I was in the building for rookie Alex DeBrincat's first ever career hat trick. That was a fun game. My dad got tickets through a school, my old high school's benefit auction, and you got to sit in the 100 level, and it was the seats are along the aisle that I'm not sure. I would think he still does it, but where Jim Cornelison, after he does the anthem, goes up the aisle back to get some soup in the press box and everything. So you get to high five him and stuff. So me and my dad did that. And then, DeBrincat had the hat trick. It was a November game, what was his rookie year? 2017, 18? Against the Ducks. They won 7-3.
That's fun.
Pretty sure. I'll double check that. But that one I always remember being there in the stands. Not a game that we were working or anything. It was well before 2017. It was well before I was working full time even in this media field. But that was a fun one.
That was a good one. It was also fun to cover Ovechkin's 800th goal. If we want to do a non-Hawks moment, but
yes, it was.
I was there for Hard Hat Night when there were 2 hat tricks scored. Jonathan Taves scored a hat trick, and then they actually took that goal off the board. And then he did it again. So at 2 points, the United Center crowd started throwing hard hats on the ice. That was February of 09. And that was the last time they gave out hard hats at a game. There were hundreds of hard hats on the ice. It was amazing.
I'm sure the ice was nice and smooth after that.
Well, not only that, it was just people from the 300 level throwing hard hats down on people in the 100 level was probably not the greatest safety thought.
Sure everyone had perfect aim on those throws, yeah.
But that was pretty unforgettable, and also just attending the first Winter Classic, even though they lost that game, just kind of felt like a turning point in the franchise's history. A couple of people said the comeback game against Calgary.
Yep.
That was great. I was there when, in 09, the playoff series against Calgary, Martin Havlat won it in overtime. In game 1, I had really great seats for that game. It was like 5 rows off the Hawks bench. And they played like ass for a lot of that game. And just kind of found a way. And then we're on our way to the Western Conference Final. We didn't know at the time, but that was cool. That was very cool to see.
Good stuff.
All right. Do we have, let's see. I know we have one more.
Any more from the Discord?
Shorty one we could do. What do we get? We have a lot more from the Discord, actually. Let's see here. I'm going to cherry pick. Let's do. I know. I'm sorry. I'm going through my order. How about Alberto? Alberto had a good question. Alberto says, "Can you explain why this team has been so bad this season? 7th best power play, 11th best penalty kill, 10th best shooting percentage, and when you go through the lineup individually, it seems like most players met expectations." Thoughts?
I mean, I think there's the shooting percentage thing is funny. You have the 10th best shooting percentage, but you average the least shots per game.
Yeah, that's part of it.
You're making them count, but there's not a lot of them that you're making count. I think that's part of it. I think the start of the season, the emphasis on, the defensive structure, and you just stifled any kind of offensive game. I think that was not a winning strategy for a team that wasn't very strong. Not strong defensively. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. And then, I think as you got through into December, and that's kind of when the roster turnover started to happen. You had a lot more young guys kind of come up at that point. I think it just, kind of came down to why this team never like found an upswing. They just went down and then kind of flattened off. It's just, you have a lot of guys getting their first tastes of the NHL or finally getting to stretch their legs in the NHL. And that comes with some growing pains. And I think, were there games this year where, one or two bounces go the other way and it's a different result? Yeah, I think so. I think some bounces and some reviews have not gone their way at times. But is that the difference between them picking second and being in the playoffs? No, I think it's just a pure talent for talent. On most nights, you're just outmatched.
I think the point, though, is interesting, and I think he's correct in saying that when you go up and down the sheet, like guys have kind of performed as you expected in terms of point production and those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, though, that two of the guys you counted on the most, Tirabassi and Bertuzzi, have been incredibly streaky, where they've either been on fire, which Teuvo Tirabassi is now, or ice cold as Tyler Bertuzzi is right now.
Yeah, and it's never lined up where they've both been on fire.
Right. Yeah. And they don't draw a ton of penalties. So despite the power play being good, they're not on the power play nearly enough.
Right.
And they just never have the puck. That's a huge part of it. They never, every game you look up and, it's
you're outchanced.
It's like 60-40 in shot attempts. And that's not a way to survive. You can hang on, keep games close, but it's not a way to survive. And it just goes to show that even though guys performed expectations statistically, it wasn't a talented enough roster.
Mm-hmm.
So upwards. It's going upwards. It's getting better. We promise. All right. Before we go, one final reminder for today. Intro offer $36 for the whole year to become a diehard at ALLCHGO.com. Go to ALLCHGO.com/intro to sign up or scan that QR code right there on your screen. Yes, you get a free t-shirt. Yes, you get 20% off all of our events, takeovers, watch parties, etc. Access to our members only Discord, which gives you priority on Mailbag Wednesday. Every question we got to today was a Discord question. So take advantage. It's a great deal. The shirts themselves are $33, so without the discount. So you're basically paying $3 for a year membership if you do the math that way. So jump on, take advantage. This offer ends after Friday. So get it and join us here at CHGO. We'd appreciate it big time. Thank you to Katie for filling in for Sarah today. We hope she's feeling better and back tomorrow. We will talk to you. Is it 9 o'clock pregame tomorrow?
Sure is.
Cripes.
Gonna have a full day and then go to work.
Yes, 9 o'clock pregame ahead of Hawks and Sharks, who dropped the puck at 9:30 in San Jose. So don't miss it. We'll talk to you then on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.